Could you be the reserved guest I was expecting? I have something crucial to discuss with you. Please, can you spare a moment? As I was about to step into the restaurant, a woman dressed in chef's attire, looking quite anxious, approached me. Initially, I thought she might want to confirm something about my meal, but what she revealed next was utterly unexpected and left me stunned. My name is Cheryl Ruth. I am 33 years old and work in the advertising industry. My job is demanding but fulfilling as I strive to craft impactful advertisements. I met my husband, Brian, at work. He's just a year older than me, and we've been married for a year now. As a couple with 2 incomes, we share household responsibilities efficiently, supporting each other in managing our lives. Our early interactions were purely professional, but over time, we began to share more personal conversations and discovered our similar interests and values. I developed feelings for him, and fearing that we might drift apart after our joint project ended, I gathered the courage to confess. Despite my anxiety, Brian reciprocated my feelings, and we started dating. After a year, he proposed, and we got married. Before our marriage, Brian disclosed that he had been married before and was now divorced. They had been together for about a year, had no children, and decided to separate due to incompatible values. Brian seemed to regret not making his first marriage work and was somewhat reserved in matters of love, likely due to his past experiences. However, I was understanding and felt that as long as there were no unresolved issues, his past didn't bother me. My desire wasn't just for a happy marriage, but to live my life alongside Brian. So I accepted his history and we proceeded with our wedding. Our married life has been joyful and we've adapted well to living together. We moved to an apartment conveniently located near both our workplaces, and Brian's parents, who live close by, have been incredibly supportive. Initially, I was worried about potential conflicts from living so close to my in-laws, but they have always been welcoming and kind. Our married life has been smoother than I expected, thanks to our mutual understanding and support. Balancing work and personal time can be challenging, especially during the weekdays when my husband and I have limited leisure time due to our demanding jobs. We often only manage brief conversations over dinner, but we make it a point to maximize our weekends together. Cooking has become one of our favorite activities. We love trying new recipes at home, which has become particularly important given my dietary restrictions. I have a severe allergy to fruits from the Rosaceae family, which includes strawberries, apples, pears, and peaches. This allergy is not just inconvenient, but can be dangerous. It developed unexpectedly when I was an adult. I remember eating a lot of strawberries once, and my mouth swelled up to the point where I struggled to breathe. After a series of tests, the diagnosis of my Rosaceae fruit allergy was a heartbreaking revelation. Discovering that I could no longer enjoy many of my favorite fruits was deeply upsetting. Eating out has become a challenge because even when I think a dish might be safe, these fruits could be hidden ingredients. Just a slight exposure can cause my skin to redden and swell. It's become tedious to continually verify ingredients with restaurants, and I often feel guilty for having to ask. This has led me to develop an aversion to dining out. The fear of accidental exposure and subsequent allergic reactions has made me overly cautious. When my husband and I were dating, I often felt apologetic for my constant need to check ingredients thoroughly. Without such vigilance, I can't fully relax or enjoy meals. However, cooking at home has become a haven. Choosing and preparing ingredients together has become a cherished routine that mitigates my worries. Fortunately, my husband and his parents are incredibly supportive of my situation, which eases a lot of the mental strain. My mother-in-law, in particular, understands allergies very well due to her father's severe wheat allergy. Her empathy and knowledge have been a huge comfort, making my transition into married life smoother and helping me manage my dietary restrictions with less stress. Cooking and eating at home has become a joyful activity for us, and a necessary adaptation to ensure my well-being. Allergies can be serious, even life-threatening, so we always take them seriously. My mother-in-law took the time to understand my specific dietary needs and went out of her way to ensure that any meal we shared was safe for me. Whether we were dining at her home or eating out, she took additional precautions to let me enjoy my meals without fear. "You shouldn't have to be scared during meals. I'll make sure everything is safe for you," she assured me once, a gesture that nearly brought me to tears. I've grown to have a wonderful relationship with my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, who treats me as if I were her daughter. We often spend time together, and my husband and his parents are genuinely caring people. Thanks to their efforts, my initial fears about managing my allergies have all but disappeared. One memorable day, I received a promotion at work for a project proposal I initiated, which was a big success. I shared the exciting news with my family, and they were all overjoyed, particularly my mother-in-law. To celebrate, she suggested we go to an upscale restaurant located in a luxurious hotel, an establishment I had dreamt of visiting since my student days. Despite the grandeur, I hesitated because of the extravagant setting and my concerns about the menu. "You don't have to hold back. It's such a joyous occasion. Let me treat you," she insisted, genuinely pleased about my achievement. Her enthusiasm warmed my heart, but I still had reservations. Before my allergy diagnosis, I had browsed the restaurant's website, fantasizing about trying their fruit-filled tart. I knew that the restaurant frequently used fruits from the Rosaceae family in their dishes. While I appreciated my mother-in-law's generosity, the restaurant's penchant for using allergenic ingredients made me nervous. In the past, whenever we dined out, we would inform the staff of my allergies in advance, but I always felt guilty for the extra trouble. We usually opted for places that rarely used fruits from the Rosaceae family to minimize the risk. Even though the restaurant could prepare dishes without these fruits, the thought of a kitchen that regularly handled them was frightening. The potential for cross-contamination was too high a risk for comfort. In the end, my decision leaned towards caution, preferring to celebrate in a way that ensured both safety and enjoyment without the underlying fear. Due to my concerns about a potential allergic reaction, I initially hesitated to accept my mother-in-law's invitation to dine at a high-end restaurant. Nonetheless, she was persistent and reassuring. "Don't worry, I'll inform them about your allergy when I make the reservation. I also know someone there, so they'll take good care of us," she confidently assured me. I was surprised to learn of her connection to the restaurant, as neither she nor my husband had ever mentioned it before. It seemed she preferred to keep such details private. Her enthusiasm, coupled with my curiosity about the restaurant's cuisine, eventually swayed me. Given her consistent consideration of my allergies, I felt a bit more at ease about the idea. When I discussed it with my husband, he was also surprised to hear about his mother's connection, but was reassured knowing that they were informed and would take precautions. "It's a celebration of your promotion, right? Make sure to enjoy yourself," he encouraged with a smile. Although I had initial reservations due to my allergies, the restaurant had always been a place I admired. So with everything arranged, I decided to embrace the occasion. Since our lunch was scheduled on a weekday, I took a half day off from work. After finishing my morning tasks, I dressed in a more formal outfit than usual, paying extra attention to my appearance. My colleagues noticed my attire and, learning about my plans, wished me a good time. Upon arriving at the hotel, my mother-in-law was already there, waiting. Together, we made our way to the restaurant located on the first floor. Thanks to our reservation, we were immediately escorted to our table. Our reservation was for 2 p.m., but we were informed of a slight delay due to the busy lunch hour. Understanding the popularity of the place, I decided to order just drinks initially and wait patiently. Feeling relaxed after finishing work and buoyed by my mother-in-law's company, I ordered champagne. We engaged in delightful conversation, enjoying the moment and the anticipation of our meal, surrounded by the elegant ambiance of the restaurant. I had enjoyed champagne before, but the glass I sipped that day somehow tasted superior, enhancing my already high spirits. The allure of the restaurant I had long admired and the tantalizing dishes at nearby tables heightened my anticipation for our meal. Just as I was settling into the moment, the unexpected ring of my phone from inside my bag pulled me back to reality. I hadn't turned it off, and seeing the call was from work, I felt a sudden jolt of sobriety, worried there might be an urgent issue. I excused myself from my mother-in-law and stepped outside the restaurant to take the call, ensuring privacy in case the conversation involved sensitive information. It turned out to be about a document I had submitted earlier. My colleague needed some clarifications. Relieved it wasn't due to an error, I quickly addressed their questions and was about to hang up when an unfamiliar woman approached me. "Excuse me, are you the customer who made a reservation for today's meal at the restaurant?" she asked. Dressed as a chef, presumably from the restaurant's kitchen, she looked rushed and slightly breathless, her expression laden with concern. I was puzzled by her appearance outside the kitchen during such a busy time, but her next words made my heart sink. "It's dangerous to go back to the restaurant now. Please leave the hotel and ensure your safety immediately." Her intense demeanor and urgent warning left me stunned. Seeking further explanation, yet unable to fully grasp the situation under the pressure, I felt the blood drain from my face. Without fully understanding but driven by her insistence on immediate danger, I quickly hailed a taxi in front of the hotel and headed home. That evening, my phone rang again. It was my mother-in-law, and her tone was sharp and furious, something I had never encountered from her before. "You had everything set up to celebrate, and you just left without a word. Don't you know basic manners? What kind of upbringing did you have?" She chastised me, clearly embarrassed and upset that I had left the celebration abruptly without explaining, leaving her to handle the reserved special course on her own. Her words were harsh, and I realized the gravity of the misunderstanding and the strain it had unexpectedly caused. I had always seen my mother-in-law as a kind and gentle woman, but during our phone call there was no hint of that gentle person. I thought she would be concerned about my sudden departure, worried something might have happened to me. Instead, she was furiously yelling, her intensity making me wonder if the rumors I had heard about her might be true. As I stayed quiet, she continued to berate me, criticizing not only me but also my parents and the way they raised me. "You've been silent this whole time. Don't you realize you've done something wrong? You're not fit to be my son's wife," she raged. After a long tirade, she seemed to calm down slightly, and I finally found the courage to speak up. "You told me you had informed the restaurant about my allergies when you made the reservation, and I could relax, right? But the restaurant wasn't aware of my allergies. What happened?" I asked. The reality was that the meal that day included ingredients I was allergic to, not just in the dessert, but also in the main courses, hidden in marinades and sauces. The woman who approached me outside the restaurant had taken the reservation call from my mother-in-law and confirmed that no mention of my allergies had been made. This woman, a chef responsible for our meal that day, had noticed the allergy badge on my bag and came out to check on me, just in case. If she hadn't warned me, I would have unknowingly consumed the food and likely suffered a severe allergic reaction. At first, I couldn't believe my mother-in-law would deliberately put me at risk, but the chef's urgency made me reconsider. Moreover, she revealed something astonishing, that she was my husband's ex-wife, now working under the name Julia. Seeing me with my mother-in-law, she realized I was the new wife and decided to intervene. She told me that my mother-in-law was known for her harsh behavior, something she had experienced during her marriage to my husband. Living with his parents, the ex-wife was constantly criticized by my mother-in-law, especially when my husband or father-in-law wasn't around. Despite her culinary skills, Honed at a professional cooking school, my mother-in-law found fault with everything she did, even discarding her dishes on occasion. This revelation painted a very different picture of the woman I had known as gentle and kind. It explained the unexpected hostility and helped me understand the complex dynamics of my new family, prompting a serious reconsideration of how to handle these relationships moving forward. My mother-in-law had always been skilled at masking her true nature, especially in front of my husband, leading the ex-wife to believe that any complaints would be disregarded. Recently transitioned to a full-time housewife, she found herself lacking financial independence and constantly under the vigilant eye of her mother-in-law. Feeling trapped and isolated, with no one to confide in and unable to gather any tangible proof of her mistreatment, she eventually saw divorce as her only escape. Despite having no prior work experience outside the home, she leveraged her culinary training to secure a job at a local restaurant. Over time, as she worked diligently and rose through the ranks to become a skilled chef, the painful memories of her past began to fade, and she started to find joy in her profession. However, years later, her past unexpectedly resurfaced when my mother-in-law discovered where she worked and began frequenting the restaurant. Recognizing her ex-daughter-in-law, she started to subtly threaten her for discounts. While the chef declined these absurd demands, the lingering effects of past traumas made her yield to some of them. This was the connection my mother-in-law referred to when boasting about her influence at the restaurant. When I confronted my mother-in-law about not communicating my allergies to the restaurant, she feigned ignorance. "I knew about your allergies, so I must have told them." "Maybe it was the staff's oversight," she said defensively, attempting to shift the blame onto the restaurant staff. Given that the reservation call was handled by the ex-wife, it seemed probable that my mother-in-law had deliberately omitted to mention my allergies, intending to pin any issues on the restaurant. However, I was prepared for her tactics. Knowing the restaurant's strict guidelines on allergies and their practice of recording calls for dispute resolution, I was confident that the truth could be easily verified. When faced with the possibility of recorded evidence, my mother-in-law was caught off guard and fell silent. I pressed her further. "You've always been so cautious about my allergies. Why didn't you mention them this time?" Until that point, she had always shown a great deal of concern for my well-being, making her actions all the more baffling. After a tense silence, she exploded in defiance. "I despise how you outshine me. You deserve some pain." This shocking admission shattered my perception of our relationship. Her true feelings, hidden under the guise of familial care, revealed a deep-seated resentment towards me. It was a painful realization, and it prompted me to reevaluate the dynamics of our relationship and consider how to address this newfound hostility. My mother-in-law's envy had surfaced because I received praise at work and was more liked in the neighborhood than she was. She arrogantly claimed that even if I spoke out, no one would believe me. Without this incident, I might never have realized she was capable of such deceitful actions. Fortunately, I had gathered evidence that could reveal her true nature, and I confronted her with it, confident that I had the support of my family. In the presence of my parents and my husband, Brian, I had this confrontation. This conversation was being recorded. Everyone present heard how she berated me and her intentions to deliberately expose me to allergens. After the incident at the restaurant, I immediately went to my parents' house and had Brian join us. We were discussing our next steps when she called, so I quickly switched the call to speakerphone and began recording for evidence, capturing her incriminating statements. Taken aback by my revelation, she asked in a shaky voice, "Wait, is Brian there with you?" She had not expected her son to be listening. Responding to her, Brian, who had been silently collecting evidence, finally spoke up. "I heard everything. I can't believe you would do something like this, Mom," he said, his voice tinged with suppressed anger. she hastily began making excuses, saying, "It wasn't like that, I didn't mean it." But her attempts sounded desperate and insincere, especially after her earlier outburst. Brian's anger was evident as he declared, "I don't even want to think of you as my mother anymore. We're cutting ties." Shocked by the true nature of the mother he had trusted, Brian was beyond furious. He then announced his estrangement from her, ignoring her cries. Moreover, my parents stated they would sue her for attempted murder. Brian ended the call, disregarding her continued pleas. Later, when Brian informed his father about the incident, his father was also furious and suggested they separate, eventually evicting her from their home. With no relatives to rely on, no income, and having been a housewife, she found herself in a desperate position. Her husband, feeling a final bit of pity, arranged a basic apartment for her, paid the first month's rent, and told her to find work so she could support herself. However, lacking the motivation to work and still trying to cling to Brian and me, she barged into our house one day, demanding money. This ongoing drama highlighted the need for us to set firm boundaries and protect ourselves from further manipulation and harm. We firmly sent her away, insisting that she should earn her living, particularly Brian, who was extremely stern to ensure she wouldn't approach our house again. Later, rumors suggested she started working at a nearby supermarket, but she appeared quite disheveled and alone, struggling to adjust to her new circumstances. Despite her challenges, I hope she continues to work diligently, not only for her expenses, but also to compensate us for the trouble she caused. I prefer that she remains out of our lives permanently. The root of her actions seemed to stem from jealousy. She wanted to see me suffer, perhaps because my independence and success contrasted sharply with her situation. Jay's ex-wife, who had moved in with his family after graduating from vocational school, was quiet and submissive, often bearing the brunt of her mother-in-law's unpleasant demeanor and bullying nature. In contrast, I am independent, actively working and receiving promotions. I enjoy a higher social status and am well regarded in our neighborhood. Initially, she appeared to approve of me, seeing me as a competent daughter-in-law. However, her feelings shifted to envy as she realized she couldn't bully me. She longed to see me in a diminished position, one that would allow her to look down on me. After the explosive call during which Brian and his father confronted her, she confessed everything, leading to their decision to cut ties with her. Later, Brian reached out to his ex-wife to apologize for not noticing the bullying she endured under his mother's roof. At that time, he was new at his job and blindly trusted his mother, which obscured his perception. He regretted his oversight, but his ex-wife reassured him that she had moved on. She's now dating someone and is happy, which brings peace to their conversation. Through this ordeal, I became friends with Brian's ex-wife. She's career-oriented and we get along well. Despite her being his ex, there are no concerns about their past relationship, and I am glad to have a friend close in age. After resolving the issues with his mother, Brian and his father threw me a promotion party. It was a lovely gesture that made me feel appreciated and supported by them. This celebration reaffirmed my resolve to continue working hard, free from the worries about my former mother-in-law's interference.